What is it about places that can kill us that still draws us in? Across the planet, there are landscapes so breathtaking they almost seem unreal. But beneath that beauty lie silent threats. A cliff does not need to give a warning before it collapses. A crystal clear river can hide a current strong enough to pull a person under. A road running along the edge of a cliff, where even the smallest mistake can turn the entire journey into a nightmare. In places like these, nature shows no mercy. It is this confrontation between the instinct to explore and the fear of survival that makes these places so dangerously captivating. Would you dare ride a mountain bike down a slope where the distance between your tyres and a sheer drop is measured in inches? In Italy's Dolomites, some mountain bikers choose extremely narrow routes, clinging to cliffs, where even one small mistake could make them lose control. Many sections pass through Via Ferrata, routes originally made for climbers, with loose stones, rough terrain, and almost no room to recover from an error. When speed, altitude, and strong winds combine, every turn becomes a test of skill and concentration. But the challenge is not only the descent, because riders must first carry their bikes over steep climbing sections. If it were you, would you stay calm enough to place your wheels on a trail running this close to the edge? Deep in the remote wilderness of Chilean Patagonia, the Futaleufú River is not a place for the faint of heart. It is a world-class destination for elite adventure paddlers because of its Class 5 rapids, the highest danger level in whitewater rafting. At the notorious section known as Terminator, water forced through a narrow rock canyon can launch and overturn even large rafting boats within seconds. If someone falls from the raft, they can be pulled into violent whirlpools where the current repeatedly pounds them and drags them downward. Even more dangerous are hidden siphons beneath the surface, formed when fast water strikes submerged rocks and pulls victims into narrow gaps. The river's isolation makes rescue operations and medical evacuations extremely difficult, adding significant risk to every journey on Fudalufu. The Via Ferrata route on Qixing Mountain in Zhangjiajie is a cliffside challenge made for people who fear heights. Its most famous challenge is the Sky Ladder, rising to about 4,850 feet and hanging in a space covered with clouds. To cross the Sky Ladder, participants must move each safety clip along the steel cable by hand, then advance step by step on the metal ladder suspended in open air. When strong winds appear, the feeling of being fully exposed in open space becomes even clearer. On this route, one small mistake or sudden panic can create serious risk because turning back is almost impossible. Would you dare set foot in a place where opening the door at the wrong moment could let the ocean wipe you away? Welcome to La Jument, the deadly lighthouse where nature always seems ready to swallow the boldest people. During storm season, La Jument faces monster waves 65 to 100 feet high crashing directly into the tower with terrifying force. The ocean hits so hard that even though the lighthouse was built from solid stone blocks, people who once stayed there said the whole structure still shook after each wave. When a powerful storm arrives, the lighthouse can almost become a prison at sea, leaving those inside isolated for days or even weeks. Even in danger or illness, no rescue team can easily reach them until the sea calms again. Do not mistake this for an ordinary adventure, because the journey to Everest begins with weeks of preparation and travel through a harsh, frozen environment. From the earliest stages, climbers must carry dozens of pounds of survival equipment, specialised clothing and oxygen supplies to keep themselves alive at altitude. Once they enter the ice zone, they must cross constantly shifting ice blocks and deep crevasses using metal ladders placed temporarily across the frozen surface. Some sections are so dangerous that climbers move very slowly or crawl across each rung to avoid losing balance. Higher up, they also have to camp on steep mountain slopes where night temperatures can fall from -40 to -76 degrees Fahrenheit. This chain of challenges has led to more than 300 deaths on Everest, and many bodies remain there because bringing them down is almost impossible. Conquering Gervasuti Bivouac in the Alps has never been an easy challenge. To reach this shelter, climbers must cross vertical rock walls and crevasse-filled glaciers filled with danger. Waiting for them at the end of the journey is a unique metal tube with part of the structure jutting out from the mountainside. The station has room for only up to 12 people, so arriving late in bad weather may force climbers to turn back through a snowstorm. This unusual position creates the experience of sleeping halfway in the sky, but just below the entrance is a drop of thousands of feet, making every step require absolute caution. Most notably, the lack of an enclosed toilet also forces them to step outside into the frozen air, facing skin-cutting winds just to meet basic needs. On the remote island of Halmahera in eastern Indonesia, there is a volcano that has almost never slept. Its name is Dukono. While the world has been fascinated by more famous volcanoes, Dukono has quietly erupted almost continuously for nearly a century, from 1933 until today. Despite death always lurking nearby, many visitors still risk their lives by moving dangerously close to the rim rolling with dark smoke just to hunt for a once-in-a-lifetime selfie. When these images spread in late 2024, they were fiercely criticised for disregarding human life. Indonesian authorities immediately ordered a ban, placed these visitors on a blacklist, and permanently expelled them from national protected areas. Pico do Arriero 2 Pico Ruivo Trail is one of the harshest cloud walking routes in Europe. linking the two highest peaks of Madeira Island. The trail is only about 4 to 5 miles long, but its large elevation gain and repeated steep stone steps quickly exhaust hikers. The route does not circle around the mountain, but follows narrow ridgelines where wind can rise from two deep valleys on both sides. Some of the most dangerous sections are narrow, steep, and exposed metal stairways fixed directly into almost vertical rock walls. Above 5,900 feet, the landscape around the trail is filled with towering volcanic cliffs and sharp ridge lines. When thick fog rolls in, the valleys below disappear from sight, giving visitors the feeling of walking through floating seas of cloud high above the sky. When visiting Dangxia Mountain, you cannot use muscle strength, but must use your courage to gamble on the vertical iron chain ladders piercing the blue sky. The most terrifying feature is the steepness, from 80 to 90 degrees, causing the person behind to almost press their face against the heels of the person in front. The danger is pushed to the absolute limit, as this route has absolutely no safety harnesses or protective equipment whatsoever. The cliff surface becomes incredibly slippery when wet, so management must close this area during bad weather to avoid accidents. The most psychologically haunting thing on crowded holidays is the sight of dozens of tourists stranded and suspended on the chain midway up the cliff. Despite that danger, local porters still carry dozens of pounds of goods climbing to the mountain peak every single day. Welcome to Huku Waterfall, where the mighty Yellow River is suddenly forced through a narrow rock channel and transformed into one of the most violent waterfalls in China. As an enormous volume of water crashes into the canyon walls with tremendous force, the muddy golden torrent erupts into thick clouds of mist carrying sediment across the surrounding shoreline. This keeps the pathways around the falls constantly wet and slippery, while standing close to the edge to watch the churning water below always involves real danger. The roar of the falling water sounds like tens of thousands of horses charging, enough to make people nearby lose their sense of direction amid the mist and pounding noise. Even so, many visitors still crowd near the slippery edge for photos, only a few steps from one of the fiercest rivers in China. Face one of the most overcrowded train journeys in the world, where thousands of people fill every available space during major pilgrimage seasons. From a distance, the train almost disappears beneath a sea of passengers covering the roof, doorways, and outer sides of the cars. Although it is designed for about 1,000 passengers, actual numbers during peak periods can rise several times higher. With little room inside, many travellers hold onto the sides, stand in extremely narrow spaces, or sit on the roof throughout the journey. Large tree branches, signs, low bridges, and overhead high voltage power lines create serious hazards for those riding outside the cars. Even with railway staff and security personnel present, the sheer size of the crowds makes overcrowding extremely difficult to control. Suspended about 2,300 feet above the valley without safety railings, Trolltunga is one of the most dramatic and dangerous cliffs in Norway. This rock ledge was formed after the Ice Age, when massive glaciers eroded the mountain and left a deep valley below. Its open edge above the drop has turned it into an extreme photo spot, where many visitors sit near the rim, hang from the rock, or pose on the slippery surface. To reach it, visitors must complete a round-trip hike of about 17 miles across steep terrain and fast-changing weather. Strong winds from the valley can suddenly surge upward, increasing the risk of losing balance when standing close to the cliff edge. Although tens of thousands of people come each year, authorities still avoid installing railings to preserve the raw, natural state of Trolltunga. Harihar Fort is often ranked among the most dangerous climbing routes in the Western Ghats because its main ascent is almost vertical on a single basalt mass. The system of 117 steps has a slope of about 80 degrees, with each tread so narrow that it can hold only half an adult foot. The climb has no metal handrails, so climbers must grip small grooves carved into both sides of the rock face. Over many centuries, millions of footsteps have worn down the stone edges, making several sections smoother and harder to grip. The fort stands on a triangular prism-shaped basalt hill, rising suddenly from the surrounding plain with faces that are almost vertical. On weekends, hundreds of visitors can crowd the narrow staircase just to reach the fort ruins, overlooking the entire valley below. Welcome to Fagradalsfjall, a volcano whose magma flow may look slow but still tests the courage of any visitor who approaches it. Beneath the black-grey rock that appears cooled lies glowing magma reaching more than 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit, still able to release heat just below the surface. The hardest danger to detect here is invisible volcanic gas, which can collect in low areas and reduce the amount of oxygen in the air. The terrain around the eruption site changes constantly, so a safe walking route today can be blocked by lava or fresh rock the next day. Loose walls of cooled lava stacked on each other can also crack or collapse when the ground shakes. Since its eruption, Fagradalsfjall has become one of Iceland's most notable volcano viewing sites, drawing hundreds of thousands of people close enough to see the red-hot flow of Earth. There is a trail in the United States where you must win a lottery before you are allowed to go. At Zion National Park in Utah, the route to Angel's Landing ends with a narrow ridgeline, where both sides drop away in cliffs nearly 1,000 feet deep. To cross this section, hikers must hold on to steel chains anchored into the rock while carefully moving forward between strong winds and open space below. The danger increases whenever the sandstone becomes wet because a single slip can lead to a fall with nothing to stop it. At least 18 people have died on this trail over the years, many of them on the chain section. In 2022, park officials introduced a permit lottery system instead of allowing unrestricted access. Zambezi River whitewater is often ranked by extreme sports experts among the most dangerous and violent one-day commercial rafting routes on Earth. The launch point sits directly below Victoria Falls, where a massive volume of water drops down and creates deep whirlpools at the entrance to Batuka Gorge. Once the raft enters the gorge, vertical basalt cliffs rise on both sides, leaving participants with almost no way to quit or turn back. The hydraulic holes here do not only push the raft forward, but can also pull fallen people down and roll their bodies under the surface like a giant washing machine. A large inflatable raft being flipped by the waves is not a rare accident, but an almost expected risk on many rapids. From August to December, when the water level is low or below, more sharp submerged rocks are exposed and make the river even more dangerous. Would you spend $50,000 per night to sleep beneath the sea, where luxury travel turns into a real adventure experience? At this complex, guests eat, breathe and rest about 16 feet below the ocean surface, completely surrounded by seawater. It began as the world's first underwater glass restaurant, opened in 2005 with only 14 seats, before developing into an expensive lodging space. From inside, you can watch rays, sharks and sea turtles glide overhead among carefully maintained coral reefs. But that overwhelming feeling exists because of an acrylic glass wall only 7 inches thick. Beyond that glass are thousands of tons of seawater, turning every dinner and every night of sleep into a quiet confrontation with the ocean. Spanning a canyon in Zhangjiajie, this glass bridge once held the records for both the highest and longest glass bottom bridge in the world when it opened in 2016. Stretching about 1,400 feet and hanging nearly 1,000 feet above the canyon floor, the bridge uses transparent glass panels that allow visitors to look directly into the abyss below. The structure was designed to accommodate up to 800 people at the same time, although the sensation of walking across glass high above the ground remains the biggest challenge for many visitors. To demonstrate its strength, vehicles were driven across the bridge and impact tests were performed on the glass during its opening period. The bridge also became home to the world's highest commercial bungee jumping platform. Would you dare step into Katla, where a single mistake could allow nature to swallow you forever? The most nerve-wracking experience when entering the ice cave is crossing crude, temporary wooden planks. Right beneath them are deep glacier holes filled with crevasses and rushing icy water. This terrain means that even a small mistake can lead to a serious accident in a cold and difficult environment. The danger increases because the ice structure can collapse under geothermal activity from Katla volcano below. To safely conquer Katla, specialised gear and the companionship of experts who know the terrain inside out are absolutely essential. Although it carries the poetic name Fairy Meadows Road is one of the most dangerous roads in Pakistan. To reduce the risks on the 10-mile journey along the mountainside, visitors usually have to hand the wheel to local jeep drivers who know the terrain well. This rough dirt and rock road constantly faces the danger of landslides, while many sections run beside deep cliffs with no protective barriers. The most tense moment comes when two vehicles meet at a narrow bend barely wide enough for one car. At that point, one driver must reverse close to the cliff edge to give way, turning every metre into a test of nerves. Despite the danger, the majestic mountain scenery and intense sense of adventure still draw photographers and travellers to this route. Would you pay for a lunch where the view beyond the window is a drop thousands of feet deep? That is the reality at Piz Gloria, a structure perched on the summit of Schilthorn, nearly 10,000 feet above sea level in the Swiss Alps. To reach it, visitors have no option but to ride a cable car across sheer cliffs and vast open space far below. On a peak covered by snow for much of the year, the restaurant completes a full 360-degree rotation in about 45 minutes, revealing views of more than 200 mountain peaks during a meal. When clouds roll in, the entire landscape can disappear into a wall of white within minutes. Its dangerous location later turned Piz Gloria into the villain's lair in the James Bond film series. Do not let Italy's ancient beauty fool you, because Mount Etna is one of the most active volcanoes in Europe. The ground around Etna is constantly shaped by lava, ash, sulfur gases, and volcanic tunnels formed after repeated eruptions. Its danger does not come only from hot lava, but also from terrain that can hide toxic gases, weak ash layers, or hollow spaces below. One of the hardest risks to predict is a phreatic eruption, which happens when water meets hot rock or volcanic material and creates sudden pressure. These explosions can throw rocks, ash and debris into the surrounding area within a very short time. That is why every approach to Etna requires attention to geological warnings, safe routes, and guidance from local experts. In the heart of Indonesia, Mount Bromo rises as one of Southeast Asia's most famous volcanic landscapes, known for sunrise views wrapped in a haze of sulfur smoke. This active volcano stands within the Sea of Sand, a wide caldera covered with volcanic ash and sand that makes the scenery look barren like the surface of a distant planet. From the crater, white plumes continue to rise, showing that the magma system beneath has not fallen silent. Despite its fierce appearance, reaching the crater rim does not require complex climbing skills, only a climb of about 250 steps. Bromo's long presence has become deeply tied to the spiritual life of the Tengger community. Every year, they hold the Yajna Kasada ceremony and throw offerings into the crater to show their spiritual connection with this harsh, volcanic land. Averia is a violent geothermal field in Iceland where reddish-brown ground, white steam and sulphur smell create the feeling of a Mars-like surface on Earth. The Earth's crust here is very thin and fragile, so one step beyond the marked rope path can make the ground collapse into hot mud below. Temperatures in many mud pools often approach or exceed 212 degrees Fahrenheit, making direct contact dangerous enough to damage rubber shoe soles. The misty smoke columns are actually high-pressure steam vents filled with sulphur gases, which can cause burns or dizziness if visitors stand too close. Heat, toxic gases and acidic ground make this area almost unsuitable for plants and animals to survive. Although Averia looks wild and dangerous, it sits beside Iceland's Route 1, making it very easy for visitors to reach. At more than 1,600 feet high, this glass bridge turns danger into something visitors must face directly beneath their feet. Its nearly invisible glass removes almost every visual reference point, making each step feel as if it is suspended above a deep void. When visitors reach the outer edge of the bridge, strong gusts rising from the canyon make the fear of being swept toward the abyss feel even sharper. Below, a massive waterfall system pours directly beneath the bridge, creating a sound trap whose roaring echoes can make people lose their sense of direction. Mountain fog mixed with spray from the falls settles onto the glass, making the surface slippery close to the edge. Many visitors have become frozen in place, cried, or even fainted while facing the combined pressure of height, gusting wind, and endless open space. Mount Yasur holds the record as one of the most accessible active volcanoes in the world, with continuous eruptions lasting for nearly 800 years. After a short trek across ash-covered slopes, visitors can look directly into a glowing lava lake boiling inside the volcano crater. The crater is about 1,300 feet wide but has no railings, safety nets, or secure barriers along the steep edge. Every few minutes, the volcano launches burning molten rocks into the air, sometimes sending them back down close to the viewing area. Each eruption also creates powerful shockwaves strong enough to shake the chest and increase the risk of losing balance near the crater rim. Even with constant government monitoring, sudden large explosions can still happen and collapse parts of the unstable ground surrounding the volcano. Ambrum is called the Devil's Soup Pot because it once held 2 boiling lava lakes, making this volcano one of the most violently active on Earth. Standing on a soft ash rim with no protective railing, visitors can look down at lava hotter than 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit below. Large gas bubbles often burst inside the lake, throwing molten rock dozens of feet into the air and creating direct danger for anyone standing too close. The air around the crater contains high levels of sulfur gas, can produce acid rain, and requires specialised masks to protect the respiratory system. Camping overnight on the ash field is also physically demanding because the ground can shake with the geological activity below. In the darkness, the red glow from the lava lake reflects into the sulfur smoke, making the entire crater appear like an open furnace on a volcanic island. Capana, Margarita holds the record as the highest building in Europe, standing on Punta Gnafetti, within the extreme icy environment of the Alps. Part of the structure extends directly over a deep cliff, creating the impression that the entire building is suspended between clouds and rock. To reach this place, visitors must cross massive glaciers and carefully navigate deep crevasses hidden beneath the snow. Because every supply must be transported by helicopter, even a hot meal here feels rare at such oxygen-poor altitude. The entire building is covered with an outer copper shell that works like a Faraday cage, allowing lightning currents to move around the exterior instead of entering inside. It also serves as a medical research station where doctors study how the human body reacts to extreme high altitude conditions. Some attractions are built with money, but Thailand's Death Railway was built through the labour and lives of tens of thousands of people. Stretching about 258 miles between Thailand and Myanmar, it was built by the Japanese military during World War II in only about 15 months. To cut through the forests and mountains of Kanchanaburi, prisoners of war and Asian labourers were forced to work more than 12 hours a day amid hunger, disease and exhaustion. The cost was about 13,000 Allied prisoners and nearly 90,000 Asian labourers who died during construction. Today, tourist trains still move slowly across a route marked by one of the region's greatest historical tragedies. If you are already used to dangers from nature, Optics Valley Suspension Railway creates a chilling fear that comes from technology. This 6.5-mile suspended line connects Jiufengshan Mountain with Longquanshan Mountain, hanging through modern urban areas and green ecological corridors. Although it runs smoothly at a maximum speed of 37 miles per hour, the unease begins when passengers realise the entire train is suspended high above the ground with no driver in the cabin. The transparent glass floor exposes the open space dozens of feet below, turning each section into a psychological test for anyone afraid of heights. The system is fully controlled by artificial intelligence, so if the power or control system suffers a rare failure, passengers could be trapped in mid-air. At that point, leaving the train depends entirely on rescue teams and specialised equipment. Caminito del Rey once carried the title of the most dangerous walkway in the world. It claimed multiple lives and was closed for 15 years before being restored. The walkway is only about 3 feet wide and fixed directly into a vertical cliff, hanging more than 300 feet above the gorge floor. Just below it, the broken concrete and rusted steel remains of the old path are still visible. Visitors must wear helmets to reduce the risk from falling rocks before crossing a steel mesh bridge that reveals the drop below and sways in the strong canyon winds. The route has almost no escape point midway, so if someone panics or faces a serious emergency, a helicopter may be the only way out.
There are places on Earth where simply existing has become a constant battle against nature. Some lands remain buried beneath permanent ice and snow, where the brutal cold slowly turns even breathing into a difficult task. In many other regions, people are forced to live on isolated islands, far out at sea, or across arid deserts where stable sources of water barely exist. In some of the planet's most extreme areas, roads hanging above deep cliffs and violent offshore storms continue to turn every journey into a gamble for survival. Yet despite the isolation, dangerous terrain, and relentless weather, people still continue to build communities in places most of the world would never imagine living in. And in this journey, we will explore the regions where nature still holds absolute control over human life. The Qiantang River is not just a river, it is the grand stage of water and holds the record for the largest tidal bore on Earth. Do not let the bright sky mislead you, because from miles away, a roar like thunder from thousands of pounding hooves can already announce the arrival of a violent surge. In a moment, the calm river surface rises into walls of white water and charges forward with violent force like a giant silver dragon. At times, the tidal flows collide and form giant T or V shapes in the middle of the river, turning the entire surface into a display that is both precise and dangerous. Waves as high as a 2- or 3-story building can knock down and sweep away anything in their path, from trees to vehicles standing too close to the bank. This is also one of the rare places where professional surfers ride directly on the riverbore and travel for miles across the muddy sediment-filled water. Makoko is not just a floating slum, it is a place where people live each day, surrounded by pollution, instability, and the constant fear of being erased at any moment. Most of this settlement is built on wooden stilts driven into the Lagos Lagoon, but the water below is not a resource. It is a thick, black layer filled with garbage, sewage, and household waste discharged directly beneath the homes. In this environment, disease becomes part of daily life, with estimates suggesting that up to 40% of children under 5 suffer from water-related illnesses such as diarrhea, typhoid, and dengue fever each year. But the deepest scar of Makoko is not in the water, it lies in the collective memory of the 2012 eviction. Residents were given only 72 hours to leave, and when authorities returned, they cut down the support structures, destroying entire lifetimes of possessions within minutes. Since then, the sight of police boats is enough to push the entire community into a state of extreme alert and fear. Lake Erie appears to be the calmest of the Great Lakes, yet its shallow depth makes it one of the most unpredictable bodies of water in North America during the cold season. When cold air from Canada moves south, the relatively warmer lake surface triggers strong evaporation, pulls moisture into the atmosphere, and then releases heavy snow bands over land through the lake effect process. In extreme events, snowfall can reach about 3 to 6 feet in roughly 48 hours, enough to bury streets, shut down transportation, and isolate many lakeside communities. Because of its shallow water, Lake Erie can freeze across about 90% of its surface, but that ice remains unstable and can be broken and pushed by strong winds. Large ice masses driven from the lake onto shore can form moving ice walls that damage roads, houses, and waterfront infrastructure. After major storms, rows of lakeside homes can become fully coated in ice, turning into solid frozen structures and leaving behind highly unpredictable property damage. The Uros Islands are the highest mobile reed fortress on Earth, where people live on a surface that slowly rots beneath them in thin air and cold rising from the lake. Under their feet is not stone or soil, but tightly woven totara reed roots, a soft ground that stays damp, shifts gently, and can give way if the fresh reed layer above becomes too thin. That is why the Uros people almost never know real rest, because every 15 to 20 days, they must spread a new layer of reeds to keep the island from sinking and turning into marsh. Living day and night on a surface that never fully dries also wears down the body, leaving many adults with joint pain and lung problems, while children often face biting cold and skin disease. In daylight, the sun, at nearly 13,000 feet, burns skin quickly, but at night, the cold from the lake rises through the reeds and turns each home into a natural icebox. Most ironic of all, even while surrounded by a vast lake, many Uros families still lack clean water, because the water around them grows dirtier and slowly damages the health of the whole community. Living and navigating through the Corinth Canal in Greece is a risky decision, because this artificial waterway cuts a narrow wound into the land, where towering rock walls constantly threaten to collapse. The obsession with slicing through this isthmus began in ancient times, and in 67 AD, the Roman Emperor Nero forced about 6,000 prisoners to dig the canal by hand, leaving many dead from exhaustion and falling rock before the project stalled for centuries. When the canal was eventually completed, it passed through soft, sedimentary rock and an active fault zone, which means the steep walls frequently collapse despite massive retaining structures. During World War II, retreating German forces destroyed sections of the canal walls and pushed more than 130 train cars and several locomotives into the channel, turning the bottom into a tangled barrier of steel and explosives. Today, ships passing through the canal move so close to the rock walls that passengers can almost reach out and touch the cliff faces rising on both sides. Above the narrow gorge, nearly 260 feet deep, a bridge spans the canal and has become a famous bungee jumping site where thrill seekers leap into a tight corridor of swirling wind between the towering cliffs. Angel Falls lies deep inside Venezuela's Canaima National Park, and it is the tallest uninterrupted waterfall in the world, with a total height of 3,212 feet and a main free fall of 2,648 feet. But the extremity of this place is not defined by height alone. Angel Falls has no road leading to it, so to reach it, people must fly in small aircraft through cloud-filled canyons and then continue for hours by boat up the Churun River. The waterfall carries the name of American pilot Jimmy Angel, the man who brought it before the outside world. In 1937, he tried to land his Flamingo aircraft on top of Uyan Tepui in search of gold, but the plane sank into marshy ground and was completely ruined. After that, Angel, his wife, and 2 companions had to walk for 11 days through rainforest, hunger, and steep terrain to make their way down. The aircraft remained on the mountaintop for 33 years as a trace of human failure before nature. Migingo Island is a strange mass of rusted metal rising from the middle of Lake Victoria, with one of the highest population densities and harshest survival conditions on Earth. On an area only about half the size of a standard soccer field, more than 500 people live in tightly packed sheet metal homes with alleys so narrow that in many places only one person can squeeze through at a time. Space is so scarce that some fishermen have to share sleeping hours because nearly every usable section of exposed rock has already been filled with shelters. Fresh water has to be transported from the mainland to the island, while sanitation is extremely limited and waste from many toilets goes directly into the lake. This overcrowding is tied directly to Nile perch, a fish of major economic value that has turned the waters around the island into a fiercely contested fishing ground. Even under such cramped conditions, Migingo still functions like a miniature community, with bars, places of worship, entertainment spots, and basic services packed tightly between the corrugated metal roofs. In Hong Kong, one of the most modern and expensive cities in the world, there still exists an extreme form of housing known as coffin homes. The name comes from the reality that once the door is closed, the space inside becomes as cramped and suffocating as a coffin, while an apartment of about 430 square feet can be divided into up to 20 tiny sleeping units. The harshness becomes clear when elderly residents have died alone inside these boxes and were only discovered days later, while others continue to eat and sleep beside those same partitions because they have nowhere else to go. For many residents, the box gradually becomes their entire world, where they live in isolation, depression, and rely only on a phone screen or a small television as their sole controlled connection. The sanitation conditions are even more extreme, as in some subdivided units, toilets are placed directly next to cooking areas due to the lack of space. Waste odors, food smells, and damp air are trapped inside rooms with almost no windows, creating a toxic environment that slowly erodes both physical health and mental stability. The Maldives is the lowest and flattest country on Earth, with an average natural elevation of only about 4.9 feet above sea level. This country is not a continuous landmass, but a chain of 1,192 small coral islands scattered across the Indian Ocean. And if sea level rises by another 3.3 feet, about 80% of its land area could be flooded. To adapt to terrain that is almost entirely surrounded by water, the Maldives has developed unusual structures such as underwater restaurants and villas placed about 16 feet below the surface. Each island is formed on ancient coral reefs, and these reef systems not only create the country's well-known blue water, but also act as the main natural barrier protecting residents from strong ocean waves. The physical security of the country therefore depends heavily on the stability of the surrounding marine ecosystem. In 2009, the President of the Maldives and his ministers held an official meeting on the seabed to warn the world about the danger of climate change. In Oymyakon, human breath can freeze almost instantly as it leaves the mouth, creating a faint crackling sound in air thickened by extreme cold. This small village in Yakutia is considered the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth, with recorded temperatures dropping to minus 96.1 degrees Fahrenheit. Here, stepping outside is no longer a routine action, but more like the beginning of a direct confrontation with nature. Residents must wear up to 20 layers of clothing, weighing nearly 31 pounds, just to keep their bodies safe for a short period of time. But the cold in Oymyakon extends deep into the ground, where permafrost hundreds of feet thick makes conventional plumbing systems nearly impossible to maintain. As a result, water must be obtained by cutting blocks of ice from frozen rivers and carrying them back home. Even vehicles struggle to function, as tires can harden like stone and engines require hours of heating before they can start. Zojila is described as India's stairway to heaven and is also one of the highest and most dangerous mountain roads in the world at about 11,578 feet. The greatest pressure comes from sections of dirt and rock road clinging to the cliff with no guardrails at all, while a deep drop lies directly below and leaves no room for even a small mistake. In summer, the surface is not smooth asphalt, but a mix of heavy dust and muddy slush from melting ice, forcing large trucks to twist through the steep mountainside with difficulty. In winter, this pass receives massive snowfall that can build white snow walls as tall as a 5-story building and completely isolate the region for months. Once vehicles cross the top of the pass, the landscape shifts quickly from the green forests of Kashmir to dry, rocky mountains, creating a very sharp, geographic contrast. Despite these conditions, Zoji La remains the only lifeline route, delivering food and fuel to tens of thousands of people living in the highlands. Walvis Bay is an extreme survival intersection where the world's oldest desert, the Namib, drops straight into the Atlantic Ocean. The first layer of harshness lies in the climate, because this is one of the driest cities in the world, with almost no rain, yet it is frequently covered by thick sea fog rolling inland, making the desert edge feel both scorched, dry, and cold damp at the same time. The next danger appears north of the bay, where the skeleton coast is littered with rusting shipwrecks because the powerful Benguela current and dense fog have repeatedly thrown ships off course and pushed them onto deadly sandbars. The bright pink salt fields spread across this place make the ground look like another planet, because extremely high salinity and salt-loving algae have turned the entire surface into bands of color that seem almost unreal. That same nutrient-rich seawater also turns this place into a gathering point for more than 150,000 flamingos and dense colonies of Cape Fur seals covering the shoreline. Rio Tinto does not look like an ordinary river, but more like a dark red band of liquid, where the chemical environment is so harsh that many forms of life can barely survive. Its extremity comes from its very high acidity, close to the acid in the human stomach, or concentrated lemon juice, strong enough to cause stinging and burning if skin stays in contact for too long. Because of those conditions, there are almost no fish and very little ordinary aquatic life that can survive in this water. So people come here only to observe, and no one enters the river to swim or wade through it. The distinctive red color of Rio Tinto is also not a simple visual effect, but the trace of an iron-rich and acidic environment that has existed for a very long time. That almost extraterrestrial harshness is exactly why NASA and the European Space Agency chose this place as a real-world testing ground for robots and life detection equipment before sending them to Mars. Tumpak Sewu in Indonesia is not a peaceful attraction, but is often called one of the most dangerous curtain waterfalls in the Indonesian. At the bottom lies a narrow, semicircular basin locked in by steep sedimentary walls rising close to 300 feet, where the thunder of falling water can completely drown out warning sounds from upstream. Mount Semeru is among the most persistently active volcanoes on Earth, with eruptions recorded in 74 of the past 80 years, and since 2014, it has released ash almost daily, with plumes rising as high as about 7.5 miles. The valleys below the waterfall system, including the basin around Tumpak Siwu, repeatedly receive volcanic mudflows whenever heavy rain combines with eruptive activity from the mountain. In 1981, a major mudflow destroyed 26 villages and killed at least 251 people. And in December 2021, another collapse of volcanic material swept away thousands of homes. Despite the constant danger, many workers still collect volcanic sand in the dry riverbeds nearby, where a sudden roar from Semeru may leave them only 10 to 15 minutes to escape the incoming mud flow. Tliaratinsky district has long been labeled the most dangerous place in Europe due to past insurgency, ethnic conflict, and terrorism, and it remains the only region in Russia under continuous Level 4 Do Not Travel advisories from the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. Isolation is reinforced by a single mountain road carved into the Caucasus slopes, where narrow dirt sections cling to vertical cliffs on one side and drop hundreds of feet into unprotected ravines on the other. Steep gradients, unstable rock faces, and rapidly shifting weather conditions create constant threats from landslides and avalanches. In addition to natural hazards, strict security regulations apply, and any visitor without a permit issued by the Federal Security Service at least 30 days in advance may face immediate detention. Despite its security profile, the district contains permanent glaciers such as Guten and Betsebski, which are shrinking and placing pressure on the Jurmut River water supply. The 83,500-hectare Tliaratinsky Nature Reserve is recognized as an important bird area, hosting endemic Caucasian grouse, snowfinches, and ancient oak forests that have remained largely untouched for centuries. Santa Cruz del Islote is considered one of the settlements most vulnerable to permanent disappearance from rising sea levels, with an average elevation barely above sea level and no protective seawall system. The island was gradually built in the 19th century by fishermen using stones, broken coral, and household waste to create an artificial foundation above the Caribbean Sea. Covering only about 0.005 square miles, its narrow alleys allow movement only on foot, while small boats serve for fishing and mainland access. Population density is roughly 4 times that of Manhattan, yet there is no permanent doctor, and every emergency requires at least a 1-hour boat trip, turning minor medical issues into life-threatening situations. High concentration of residents intensifies pressure from waste and sewage, creating constant ecological and public health risks. All fresh water and essential food supplies depend entirely on delivery boats, so a storm that blocks transport for several days can immediately trigger a survival crisis. Vostok Station is the cold pole of Earth, and once recorded a temperature of -128.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the lowest ever observed in human history. More than 1.9 miles beneath the ice lies a vast lake that has not touched light or air for 15 million years, giving this place conditions similar to an isolated world. The air here is extremely dry and clean, so the night sky appears exceptionally clear, and the stars shine brightly with almost no visible twinkling. Although it is covered in ice and snow, the site is still considered a white desert because humidity is almost zero, causing paper, skin, and many materials to dry out very quickly. Ice cores drilled at Vostok preserve dust and air bubbles from Earth's atmosphere dating back 400,000 years, functioning like an ancient climate record. Ice crystals in the air also often create an optical effect that makes 3 suns appear at the same time on the horizon. Frying Pan Tower stands at Frying Pan Shoals, considered the most hazardous waters off North Carolina due to shallow sandbars and complex currents responsible for hundreds of historic shipwrecks. After more than half a century in saltwater conditions, the steel structure shows heavy corrosion, with loose railings and perforated decking, where a single misstep at night can result in a fall of dozens of feet into rough Atlantic waters. Access from a boat does not involve a fixed staircase, but a hoist system with a swing seat that lifts visitors several dozen feet into the air amid strong coastal winds. The tower resembles an offshore oil platform supported by 4 massive steel legs drilled about 300 feet into the sandy ocean floor to withstand hurricanes. A helicopter pad measuring roughly 5,900 square feet also functions as a rainwater collection surface, channeling water into large storage tanks below. Visitors sign liability waivers and often assist with maintenance tasks, such as rust removal and welding, while underwater cameras continuously live stream sharks and marine life swimming around the steel pillars. Victoria Falls is an outstanding natural marvel reigning right on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. With a maximum flow of 132 million gallons per minute, the roaring water creates a sound that echoes up to 25 miles away. The water pressure plunging into the deep abyss forces mist to shoot back up 1,312 feet, maintaining perpetual drizzle for 24 hours every day. This dense mist combines with moonlight to create a nighttime moonbow phenomenon that is extremely rare in the world. During the dry season, tourists can swim at a natural pool right near the cliff edge to look down a depth of more than 328 feet without being swept away. Over the past 100,000 years, the waterfall has continuously eroded basalt rock and moved upstream, leaving behind a unique Z-shaped gorge system. The Atlantic Ocean Road, stretching about 5 miles long, is a transportation masterpiece across the open sea and proudly holds the title of the best road trip in the world. The system of 8 interconnected winding bridges leaps across islands and coral reefs, making the entire route look exactly like a giant sea monster slithering amidst the fierce ocean from above. The largest bridge on the route features a curve so sharp that it creates a chilling optical illusion, resembling a silk ribbon shooting straight into the sky before suddenly breaking in midair. This magnificently beautiful route is actually constructed right on the edge of the notoriously deadly sea named Hustadvika, with countless submerged reefs that have sunk numerous ships. If you have the courage to visit here during autumn storms, you will experience peak dramatic thrills while driving across the bridge and listening to the howling winds. Ushguli is known as the highest permanent settlement in Europe, a resilient outpost located at about 6,890 feet below the massive peak of Shkara. Each year, snow several feet deep can block the only road for months, turning the village into a settlement that is nearly cut off from medical access, stable electricity, and outside transport routes. To survive the isolated winter, families must prepare firewood, food supplies, and animal feed with strict calculation, because even a small planning error can create a serious survival risk under prolonged freezing conditions. The Svan stone towers, dating back to around the 9th century, are built as vertical defensive structures and also function as shelters against conflict and avalanches. Inside these towers, the lower level commonly holds livestock so that heat released by the animals can help warm the living space above. Despite the severe natural conditions, the Svan community in Ushguli continues long-term habitation and preserves many elements of its medieval cultural identity. La Rinconada is the highest city on Earth, a place so high that human life begins to be rejected with every breath from the very start. At an elevation of about 16,730 feet, the air is so thin that many residents live in constant exhaustion, with blue lips and hearts forced to work far too hard just to keep the body going. Life here is further twisted by the Kokorio system, where miners work for 30 days without pay and get only 1 day to carry out as much ore as they can, knowing that if no gold appears, the whole month ends in nothing. To separate gold, many also burn mercury inside wind-sheltered shacks, filling the air with poison that enters the lungs and brain each day, like a slow self-destruction traded for the hope of sudden wealth. Life above ground is just as brutal, since the town has almost no waste system, leaving garbage and human waste from tens of thousands of people to collect in the streets and melt into foul mud when the sun rises. Exploring Vermilion Cliffs in Arizona feels like stepping onto an alien planet characterized by extraordinary geological formations. This vibrant landscape actually originates from massive sand dunes dating back 190 million years, which were gradually compressed into solid sandstone. The continuously curving and parallel striations generate complex optical illusions that can disorient even the most experienced navigation experts. Nevertheless, the most significant danger here does not come from the terrain itself, but rather from highly destructive flash floods. A heavy rainstorm occurring many miles away can rapidly form a massive wall of water that crashes into the narrow slot canyons within mere minutes leaving absolutely no opportunity for escape. In order to preserve this fragile geological surface, the strict lottery system permits only 64 individuals to enter the core area each day, transforming a visit into an exceptionally rare privilege. La Jument is considered one of the most dangerous lighthouses in the world because it stands alone in waters that were once a graveyard for ships off the coast of France. This place is harsh because even a granite rock standing about 131 feet tall can shake and sway like a toy. When storms arrive, massive waves do not just crash against the tower, but completely engulf it, while inside, the impacts sound like metal explosions, and the floors shake hard enough to throw objects out of place. Lighthouse keepers once lived with the constant fear that the structure could be torn from its foundation at any moment. The peak of this brutality was recorded in 1989 when a keeper stepped outside and a towering wall of water rose behind him, and he survived only by slamming the steel door shut in time. That may be why La Jument was fully automated in 1991, and since then, no one has had to spend the night inside this tower surrounded by the ocean. Koh Phangan is the largest and oldest floating village in Southeast Asia, where a community has lived for more than 200 years on the sea without owning true ground beneath it. All houses, schools, prayer spaces, and walkways for more than 1,600 residents stand on a dense system of wooden and concrete stilts, turning the water surface into a permanent living platform. The village's famous floating soccer field was assembled from scrap wood and reused materials above moving water, and it later became a training ground for balance and football skills for many young players in southern Thailand. Most residents are born, raised, and spend daily life entirely above water, while the small piece of land behind the village is used mainly for burial space and religious functions. These living conditions force families to keep repairing stilts, reinforcing floors, and adapting to the risk of water entering their homes when weather conditions shift. From an isolated fishing settlement, Koh Phangan has grown into a major marine stop for tourism while maintaining fresh water and electricity systems directly above the sea. Komodo Island is known as the realm of the last dragons because it is the only place on Earth that preserves the largest and most dangerous lizard species in the world. These creatures possess a dense layer of iron surrounding the serrated edges of their teeth, forming an iron armor that keeps their bite razor sharp and strong enough to crush the bones of large prey such as wild buffalo without wearing down or breaking. Although their eyesight and hearing are not especially impressive, their forked tongues can taste the air, allowing them to detect the smell of carrion from as far as about 5.9 miles away. To stay safe, local people often build tall, stilt houses raised above the ground to prevent these unwanted visitors from crawling into their homes in the middle of the night. In sharp contrast to the deadly nature of these dragons, the island also features a pink sand beach with a vivid rosy hue, creating a surreal and poetic landscape in the middle of a land filled with lurking danger. Chinguetti is a rare ancient settlement that still exists while the Sahara continues to move into more and more parts of the town. Sand here does not simply blow across the surface, but rises around homes like floodwater. So many families must shovel it away from their doors each day to keep mud brick walls from being buried and collapsing. In the middle of that constant burial, the mosque tower from the 13th century still stands, built from rough-cut stone without mortar. The desert also does not advance quietly because major sandstorms regularly sweep through, damage the thin plant cover, darken the sky, and drive sand into the air that people and livestock must breathe. The long pressure of sand and climate has reduced a town that once held about 20,000 residents, leaving much of it in a ruined condition. Today, many of the people who remain are older residents and keepers of the ancient libraries, continuing to live beside the mosque and protect what is left of Chinguetti. In the Aralcum Basin, the enemy is not wild beasts, but toxic salt storms ready to burn the lungs of anyone who dares breathe this bitter, briny air. The Aral Sea was once a vast blue giant, but humans drained away 90% of its water, leaving behind a graveyard of rusting ships suspended in the emptiness of hot sand and chemicals that built up over decades. In punishing heat, reaching as high as 122 degrees Fahrenheit, life seems almost completely rejected by the white dust covering millions of acres of dead land. This mass of chemical dust can spread very far, degrading farmland and being linked to high rates of respiratory disease, cancer, and many other health problems across Central Asia. Yet amid that cruelty, old fishermen still stubbornly remain in the ancient villages after half a century, even though the sea has retreated more than 37 miles away. Dharavi is a billion-dollar slum where extreme population density exists alongside a massive underground economy in the middle of Mumbai. The area is covered by tin roofs, plastic sheets, and scrap material, creating a packed settlement with severe infrastructure shortages. Dharavi is bordered by the dark waters of Mahim Creek, filled with industrial waste and household sewage, and at one point, more than 1,000 people shared a single public toilet. Even with only about 29 square feet of living space per person, the settlement still contains more than 15,000 small workshops producing leather goods, pottery, and garments besides sleeping areas. From the outside, Dharavi can resemble a massive scrap field, but inside, it works as a large recycling center for Mumbai. Manual laborers here collect, sort, and process a very large share of the hard plastic waste from this city of about 20 million people, turning discarded material into a high-value source of income. There are places on Earth so beautiful that millions of people still try to reach them, even though nature there has never truly been safe. Some roads cut across steep cliffs where even a small rainstorm can trigger massive rock slides. Some beaches may look calm and peaceful, yet sudden waves can appear without warning and pull people hundreds of feet out to sea. In many other places, extreme temperatures and constantly shifting glaciers continue to reshape the landscape every year. Yet those harsh conditions are exactly what created some of the most extraordinary natural wonders on the planet. Nature never created these places to welcome humans, yet we have never stopped trying to reach and conquer them. The Dolomites are one of Europe's most dangerous adventure sanctuaries, where vertical cliffs are covered with via ferrata iron cables and cycling routes running close to deep drops. This iron cable network began during World War I, when soldiers carved routes, fixed ladders, and anchored cables directly into the mountainsides to move through wartime terrain. On many climbing sections, climbers must hold onto iron ladders and cables fixed straight into nearly vertical rock faces. Narrow wooden bridges crossing deep ravines can shake heavily in the wind, turning each step into a test of balance. Below the cliffs, mountain biking routes cut across slippery, steep, and narrow rock ledges where only one wheel can hold the line. The brittle limestone structure of the Dolomites can trigger sudden rock falls, adding another layer of danger for both climbers and riders. Lake Baikal is called the Blue Eye of Siberia and also the most spectacular natural ice rink in the world. The greatest threat on the ice is not only the cold, but also the summer wind, which can strike with storm-like force as it rushes down from the valleys along the lake. Across the open lake surface with no obstacles, this wind can push an adult for several miles over the ice with almost no way to stop. When snowstorms arrive, visibility across the lake is almost completely erased, and dangerous cracks become very difficult to detect. Loose snow can cover the openings of broken ice, creating disguised traps that have caused many lost cars and trucks to become stuck or fall through. Through holes in the ice, visitors may sometimes see the Nerpa, the world's only freshwater seal, lifting its head from the cold water. Pico do Arriero to Pico Revo Trail is one of the harshest cloud walking routes in Europe, linking the two highest peaks of Madeira Island. The trail is only about 4 to 5 miles long, but its large elevation gain and repeated steep stone steps quickly exhaust hikers. The route does not circle around the mountain, but follows narrow ridgelines where wind can rise from two deep valleys on both sides. Some of the most dangerous sections are narrow, steep, and exposed metal stairways fixed directly into almost vertical rock walls. Above 5,900 feet, the landscape around the trail is filled with towering volcanic cliffs and sharp ridgelines. When thick fog rolls in, the valleys below disappear from sight, giving visitors the feeling of walking through floating seas of cloud high above the sky. Zambezi River whitewater is often ranked by extreme sports experts among the most dangerous and violent one-day commercial rafting routes on Earth. The launch point sits directly below Victoria Falls, where a massive volume of water drops down and creates deep whirlpools at the entrance to Batoka Gorge. Once the raft enters the gorge, vertical basalt cliffs rise on both sides, leaving participants with almost no way to quit or turn back. The hydraulic holes here do not only push the raft forward, but can also pull fallen people down and roll their bodies under the surface like a giant washing machine. A large inflatable raft being flipped by the waves is not a rare accident, but an almost expected risk on many rapids. From August to December, when the water level is low, more sharp submerged rocks are exposed and make the river even more dangerous. Death Valley is the giant oven of the planet, where the highest air temperature ever recorded on Earth reached nearly 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity below 10% makes sweat evaporate almost instantly, causing the body to lose water silently before visitors notice signs of heat shock. In summer, ground temperatures can exceed 194 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to strain car tires and quickly soften rubber shoe soles. Across this vast desert with almost no phone signal, a broken vehicle or a wrong turn can become an isolated survival situation. Park officials place extreme danger warning signs and advise visitors not to hike after 10 in the morning. In years with heavy rain, you will witness a rare natural phenomenon as this burned dry land suddenly becomes covered with yellow and purple flowers stretching across the desert floor. Welcome to Fagradalsfjall, a volcano whose magma flow may look slow, but still tests the courage of any visitor who approaches. Beneath the black-grey rock that appears cooled lies glowing magma, reaching more than 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit, still able to release heat just below the surface. The hardest danger to detect here is invisible volcanic gas, which can collect in low areas and reduce the amount of oxygen in the air. The terrain around the eruption site changes constantly, so a safe walking route today can be blocked by lava or fresh rock the next day. Loose walls of cooled lava stacked on each other can also crack or collapse when the ground shakes. Since its eruption, Fagradalsfjall has become one of Iceland's most notable volcano viewing sites, drawing hundreds of thousands of people close enough to see the red-hot flow of Earth. Teahupo'o is a surfing spot in Tahiti, where experts rank the waves among the heaviest, most violent, and most dangerous in the world. Unlike normal waves, the steep seafloor forces a massive body of water to fold downward at high speed, forming a water wall almost as thick as its own height. Each wave can carry thousands of tons of water, crashing into shallow water directly above razor-sharp, living coral reef. The clear turquoise water looks beautiful and calm, but some sections below are only about 20 inches deep. When surfers fall, they can be pulled down and thrown onto the coral within seconds. So many rides require jet ski support. Although the 2024 Olympics were hosted by Paris, surfing was moved to Teahupo'o, about 9,300 miles from France. Basgun ice climbing takes place inside the deep gorges of the Tian Shan Mountains, where turquoise ice falls rise between snow-covered spruce forests. The ice walls sit at elevations above 8,200 feet, where thin, freezing air makes each breath heavier during the climb. Climbers must drive ice axes and crampons into frozen water to hold themselves on walls that are almost vertical. The greatest risk comes from ice blocks weighing dozens of pounds above the route, which can crack and fall freely onto the climb. The ice falls of Barskoon remain wild, with no catch nets or fixed safety cables. These cold, steep, and minimally controlled conditions make Barskoon one of Central Asia's most important ice climbing and training sites. Would you dare step inside Katla Ice Cave, a natural freezer sitting above one of Iceland's most dangerous volcanoes? Unlike many small ice cavities, Katla Cave has tall and wide arches formed by the Kutlujökull glacier on the slope of Katla volcano. Its walls are not only white and blue, but also crossed by glossy black bands, where volcanic ash from older eruptions has been trapped inside the ice. Because the glacier keeps moving and melting, the shape of the cave can change dramatically within only a few months. The greater danger lies beneath the ice, because Katla volcano has not had a major eruption since 1918 and remains under close monitoring. In enclosed spaces, volcanic gases leaking from underground can silently accumulate, making exploration dependent on guides and proper safety equipment. Futaleufú River in Patagonia is known for turquoise water so clear that it seems to glow under sunlight, but that beauty hides deep hydraulic holes and sharp, submerged rocks below. The river is fed by freezing glacial meltwater from the Andes, creating a fast and powerful current that maintains a continuous chain of high-grade rapids. The pressure of the water can be strong enough to bend the aluminum frames of specialized rafts when they hit rocks or get caught in whirlpools. The current is compressed between deep canyons, where gray granite walls, carved by ancient glaciers, rise above dense Valdivian forest on both sides. Despite the risks, Futaleufú remains a top destination for extreme rafters because of its dense whitewater sections and intense river speed. Dive straight into walls of white water, paddle through swirling currents, and hold tightly to the raft to avoid being thrown into the freezing river. Harihar Fort is often ranked among the most dangerous climbing routes in the Western Ghats because its main ascent is almost vertical on a single basalt mass. The system of 117 steps has a slope of about 80 degrees, with each tread so narrow that it can hold only half an adult foot. The climb has no metal handrails, so climbers must grip small grooves carved into both sides of the rock face. Over many centuries, millions of footsteps have worn down the stone edges, making several sections smoother and harder to grip. The fort stands on a triangular prism-shaped basalt hill, rising suddenly from the surrounding plain, with faces that are almost vertical. On weekends, hundreds of visitors can crowd the narrow staircase just to reach the fort ruins overlooking the entire valley below. Corryvreckan Whirlpool is one of the largest ocean whirlpools in the world, forming in a narrow strait between two wild islands off Scotland. When Atlantic tides are forced through the tight space between steep rock walls, the water creates a deep vortex that can pull objects down into water about 164 feet deep. The vertical downdraft here can grab small boats, debris, or people in the water and drag them into the turbulent current below. The most dangerous activity is approaching the whirlpool by speedboat, where the sea surface can shift from rough waves to a violent water pit within a short time. The Royal Navy classifies this strait as especially dangerous and warns that vessels without powerful engines should not navigate through it. Capanna Margherita holds the record as the highest building in Europe, standing on Punta Gnifetti within the extreme icy environment of the Alps. Part of the structure extends directly over a deep cliff, creating the impression that the entire building is suspended between clouds and rock. To reach this place, visitors must cross massive glaciers and carefully navigate deep crevasses hidden beneath the snow. Because every supply must be transported by helicopter, even a hot meal here feels rare at such oxygen-poor altitude. The entire building is covered with an outer copper shell that works like a Faraday cage, allowing lightning currents to move around the exterior instead of entering inside. It also serves as a medical research station, where doctors study how the human body reacts to extreme high-altitude conditions. Oslo whale shark is a chaotic biological arena where people accept physical risk by entering the middle of a group of sea giants weighing tens of tons during an intense feeding rush. Here, whale sharks, the largest fish on Earth, are kept close to shore with large amounts of krill scattered into the water every day. This feeding practice causes some individuals to change their natural behavior instead of swimming thousands of miles with ocean currents to migrate and reproduce. The surface is divided by many banker boats, with long wooden outriggers on both sides, moving close to the massive animals as they open their mouths to filter food. There are no steel cages or protective glass barriers, and visitors are placed directly into water where whale sharks pass at extremely close range. When many people crowd into a small area, collision risk increases sharply because a single change of direction from a whale shark can create a dangerous impact force. Mount Etna is Europe's most active volcano and holds the record for the longest continuously documented eruption history on Earth. Since around 1500 before Christ, Etna has repeatedly produced lava, ash, and sometimes sulfur dioxide gas rings above its craters. Its eastern flank is slowly sliding toward the Ionian Sea, creating the risk of flank collapse and tsunami impact across the Mediterranean. Etna does not erupt only from the summit because more than 300 parasitic cones can open fissures that release magma and toxic gas on its slopes. It is also a place where people can ski in winter, trek across lava ground, and walk near volcanic gas vents. Although it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, many active zones of Etna still have no safety barriers along the crater rims. Labeled as the world's most dangerous road, North Youngest Road once recorded about 300 fatalities every year. The dirt and gravel road is only about 10 feet wide and has no guardrails, forcing vehicles to travel beside drops reaching nearly 2,000 feet deep. Unlike the rest of Bolivia, drivers on this road must stay on the left side so they can directly see how close their wheels are to the cliff edge while passing other vehicles. During heavy rain, water from the mountainside turns the dirt road into slippery mud, while thick fog can completely hide the next bend and the cliff edge ahead. Along the cliffs, rows of crosses, stone markers, and dried flowers mark the locations where serious accidents once occurred. Despite its reputation for high risk, the road still attracts more than 25,000 international visitors every year who come to experience downhill mountain biking. Suspended about 2,300 feet above the valley without safety railings, Trolltunga is one of the most dramatic and dangerous cliffs in Norway. This rock ledge was formed after the Ice Age, when massive glaciers eroded the mountain and left a deep valley below. Its open edge above the drop has turned it into an extreme photo spot, where many visitors sit near the rim, hang from the rock, or pose on the slippery surface. To reach it, visitors must complete a round-trip hike of about 17 miles across steep terrain and fast-changing weather. Strong winds from the valley can suddenly surge upward, increasing the risk of losing balance when standing close to the cliff edge. Although tens of thousands of people come each year, authorities still avoid installing railings to preserve the raw natural state of Trolltunga. Blue Grotto on Capri Island is a famous blue sea cave, but its structure leaves almost no escape route for anyone inside when the tide changes. The entrance is only a narrow crack in the limestone cliff, less than 3 feet high and about 7 feet wide, small enough that normal rowboats cannot pass during high tide. Inside the cave, there is no sandbank, dry rock, or safe standing point because the entire floor is deep sea water. If the water level rises slightly, or a swell suddenly pushes in, the entrance can be covered and trap anyone still inside. The glowing blue color of Blue Grotto depends entirely on strong sunlight reaching the seabed, so on cloudy days, the water turns dark and cold. Although the surface appears calm, the Italian government still strictly bans swimming because of tides, swells, and the almost complete lack of escape space. Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge is a megastructure in China, holding the record as the tallest bridge on Earth, with a free-fall drop of about 2,067 feet into the canyon below. The deck hangs above the Beipan River at a height where an object falling from the railing would take more than 11 seconds to hit the water. The bridge crosses Huajiang Canyon, where steep limestone karst terrain forms a natural wind tunnel with strong gusts moving through the gorge. At the top of the bridge tower, there is a cafe and an observation deck suspended in mid-air instead of ordinary rest stops. Visitors reach this area through an exposed glass elevator attached to the outside of the tower, rising about 679 feet in nearly 60 seconds. The site also allows extreme jumping, turning the bridge's height into a direct experience of facing the abyss. Hanging across the Hunza Valley of Pakistan, the Husseini Suspension Bridge is known as one of the most dangerous bridges in the world. Its deck consists only of narrow wooden planks placed far apart, forcing walkers to step across large gaps above the river below. Although it looks like an ancient ruin, this bridge was actually built and patched together by local residents around the 1970s. Right beside it, the remains of the old bridge, destroyed by storms, still hang loosely, forming a clear warning of the destructive power of mountain weather. Strong wind and the movement of people make the entire bridge shake, sway, and bounce unpredictably with every step. From a necessary crossing for poor residents, Husseini has become a challenge point that attracts thrill seekers from around the world. Everest is the roof of the world, and also the harshest survival boundary in adventure tourism on the planet. At this altitude, oxygen levels are only about 1/3 of those at ground level, making the body prone to hallucination, exhaustion, and loss of control with every step. The air is also so thin that rescue helicopters can hardly operate effectively, so climbers must carry most of the risk by themselves inside the death zone. Temperatures here can drop to -76 degrees Fahrenheit, with winds close to 186 miles per hour, enough to severely damage exposed skin within minutes. During peak season, overcrowding can create impossible traffic jams on narrow ice ridges beside deep cliffs. Every climbing team must follow the 2 p.m. rule and turn back even when near the summit to avoid being trapped in snowstorms and darkness. Mount Yasur holds the record as one of the most accessible active volcanoes in the world, with continuous eruptions lasting for nearly 800 years. After a short trek across ash-covered slopes, visitors can look directly into a glowing lava lake boiling inside the volcano crater. The crater is about 1,300 feet wide, but has no railings, safety nets, or secure barriers along the steep edge. Every few minutes, the volcano launches burning molten rocks into the air, sometimes sending them back down close to the viewing area. Each eruption also creates powerful shock waves strong enough to shake the chest and increase the risk of losing balance near the crater rim. Even with constant government monitoring, sudden large explosions can still happen and collapse parts of the unstable ground surrounding the volcano. Lingpashi Road is known as one of Chongqing's craziest zigzag roads, where every sharp switchback forces drivers to face the cliff edge directly. The road was not built on a normal foundation, but carved straight into a steep rock wall, forming a dirt track that hangs along the mountainside. Nearly the entire route has no pavement, no warning signs, no safety nets, and no guardrails protecting the cliff edge. Its rough surface and steep gradient can make vehicles tilt, break axles, flip over, or slide backward downhill even when driven by experienced drivers. At blind corners, the road becomes so narrow that the tires may remain only a few centimeters from empty space when two vehicles pass each other. This level of danger has turned Lingpeishi Road into a viral online destination, attracting adventurers who want to experience it directly. Ambram is called the Devil's Soup Pot because it once held two boiling lava lakes, making this volcano one of the most violently active on Earth. Standing on a soft ash rim with no protective railing, visitors can look down at lava hotter than 1,832 degrees Fahrenheit below. Large gas bubbles often burst inside the lake, throwing molten rock dozens of feet into the air and creating direct danger for anyone standing too close. The air around the crater contains high levels of sulfur gas, can produce acid rain, and requires specialized masks to protect the respiratory system. Camping overnight on the ash field is also physically demanding because the ground can shake with the geological activity below. In the darkness, the red glow from the lava lake reflects into the sulfur smoke, making the entire crater appear like an open furnace on a volcanic island. Verið is a violent geothermal field in Iceland, where reddish-brown ground, white steam, and sulfur smell create the feeling of a Mars-like surface on Earth. The Earth's crust here is very thin and fragile, so one step beyond the marked rope path can make the ground collapse into hot mud below. Temperatures in many mud pools often approach or exceed 212 degrees Fahrenheit, making direct contact dangerous enough to damage rubber shoe soles. The misty smoke columns are actually high-pressure steam vents filled with sulfur gases, which can cause burns or dizziness if visitors stand too close. Heat, toxic gases, and acidic ground make this area almost unsuitable for plants and animals to survive. Although Verið looks wild and dangerous, it sits beside Iceland's Route 1, making it very easy for visitors to reach. La Jument is not only an offshore lighthouse, but a place where humans try to preserve a sign of life in a sea that can crush everything in an instant. The extremity of this place was carved into history on December 21st, 1989, when photographer Jean Guichard flew past at the exact moment a monstrous storm was hammering the entire tower. At the moment, lighthouse keeper Theodore Malgorn stepped out of the door. A gigantic wave almost as tall as a 10-story building surged in from behind and swallowed the whole lighthouse, leaving only about half a second between life and death. The lighthouse keepers had to avoid looking down at the waves for too long and always invent work to keep their minds occupied, because if the mind slips before reason does, this tower can turn into a deadly trap. Bishwaj-Tema Special Train is a symbol of the most spectacular transport overload on Earth. From a distance, the train no longer looks like metal, and instead resembles a living carpet woven from thousands of people crawling across the plain. A train designed to carry a maximum of about 1,000 people regularly ends up carrying more than 10,000 passengers on its roof and along its sides, far beyond global railway safety standards. When the doors are compressed so tightly that no gap remains, the only way to join the journey is to sit on the roof or cling to the windows and outer sides of the train. That forces passengers to face deadly danger from low-hanging, high-voltage lines, tree branches, and signal boards cutting across head level. The Hanging Temple is voted as one of the 10 most dangerous and bizarre buildings in the world. Viewed from afar, the temple resembles a giant bird nest clinging to a sheer cliff with no foundation but merely suspended between the blue sky and the abyss. The flimsy wooden pillars beneath the floor are actually accessories added later to ease the fear of tourists, because the entire structure, weighing thousands of tons, is truly suspended on beams driven deep into the rock. The location of the temple was calculated ingeniously, with an overhanging cliff acting like a giant umbrella to prevent erosion from rain and harsh sunlight. Despite its extremely perilous position, the structure has stood firm against natural disasters for over 1,500 years, defying all modern construction laws. When walking on the wooden corridor, which is about 1.5 feet wide, you will clearly hear the floorboards creaking and feel a slight sway amidst the deep abyss with absolutely no safety net. Huku Waterfall is often described as a giant, natural teapot where the current can pull objects downward within a very short time. The river narrows abruptly from about 984 feet to about 66 feet, producing powerful whirlpools and devastating water force. The impact against the rock walls sends up dense columns of muddy mist and turns the riverside area into a highly slippery and dangerous surface. Standing close to the rocky edge to watch the churning red-brown waterfall is a high-risk experience because wet mud and heavy spray can cover the path. The roar of thousands of tons of water striking the rock sounds like thunder and can cause rapid disorientation or panic in people standing nearby. During flood season, the water level often rises high enough to swallow safety barriers, forcing authorities to close the site urgently to prevent casualties. The Aegean poplar forest is a prehistoric remnant of a 60-million-year-old tree species and is considered one of the strangest autumn forests on Earth. These trees are famous for their 3,000-year curse, living for 1,000 years without dying, standing for another 1,000 after death, and remaining undecayed for yet another 1,000 years in the desert. In the ghost tree area, thousands of blackened, dead trunks twist upward like giant arms rising from the sand. Poplar trees here survive by growing 3 different leaf shapes on the same trunk and releasing white salt across their bark to reduce water loss. Although the forest survives for thousands of years, the entire landscape turns into a glowing golden sea for only 21 days each autumn. When the trunks crack open, a thick, dark red resin flows out like blood and is traditionally used by locals as a natural yeast for baking bread.